introduction. So I'm briefly going to present you something about a new approach to generating transformative activities in smart specialization strategies. And the things that I'm going to present are inspired by an Interact project that we led as a lead partner at our University of Applied Sciences based in Fribourg, Switzerland, with partners from the Alpine space on the relationship between clusters and smart specialization strategies. We'll see what this is all about. And I thought for a change to start a presentation with a chicken. Why not? You all know what this is. You know what you can use it for. You can keep it in your garden and use the eggs it lays, or you can kill it and eat the whole thing. Whatever, you know what it is. What you probably don't know is that the canton of Fribourg, the home region of our university, is one of the biggest poultry producers in Switzerland. And this is reflected in the presence of a cluster in our region, which is the cluster food and nutrition. You probably all also know what this is, some kind of packaging material made out of plastics. Again, you might not know, even if you're from the cluster community, that our canton of Fribourg is home to a big concentration of plastics and packaging firms, reflected again in the presence of a cluster, the Swiss plastics cluster in our region. So, we all agree what the chicken is, we all agree what plastics materials and packaging materials are. Those of you that have some technical background knowledge or an interest in bioeconomy might probably know that the chicken can actually be used to produce these kind of plastic materials. You can produce biomass out of the feathers or of the eggshells. You can use that as an input to produce bio-sourced plastic materials. But how exactly this is done? I'm a very simple-minded economist. I have no idea. I cannot explain that to you. What it really takes to develop bio-based inputs for the plastics industry is targeted investments, targeted research, targeted projects and actions to develop such bio-based inputs for the plastics industry. And this kind of process is something that we typically call smart specialization strategy. So now even those in the room that knew everything about that, about our clusters, about our strength in our canton, about what smart specialization strategies would be in a transformative process like this, to transform existing strength into new value chains, interesting new value chains. Even those of you who knew everything about it, I have one surprise for you, which probably you don't know, which is that in our canton, right now, in the canton of Fribourg, our clusters are actively working on the development on such transformative activities for the development of bio-based inputs for the plastics industry. This is something that is going on right now. And there are two things that I would like you to keep in mind of what I just said that I think are really important. The first one is concerned with the question of who is doing this? Who is doing this complex thing here of developing these kind of transformative activities? And the answer is clusters are doing it. So clusters are the driving force of this process. And the second question is the what. What is produced? What is produced is a transformative activity, the development of bio-based inputs for the plastics industry. And this is radically different than saying our region is specializing at the moment in the bioeconomy or in energy or in any of these strategic priorities that you see if you open a standard smart specialization strategy of regions. Okay, so these 2 points, do it with clusters and focus on transformative activities if you want to do smart specialization strategies, are the result of our Interact project that we did with these partners here from the Alpine space. I won't go into detail, we don't have time for that. Project was based on this interaction between smart specialization and clusters, so we are convinced that both concepts benefit from each other. Smart specialization triggers innovation within clusters to upgrade the activities of the clusters. Clusters can be used as a tool to drive the specialization process, and so on and so forth. But we identified a main challenge in this process of doing smart specialization in an effective way with clusters. And this challenge was exactly the problem that the scope of these smart specialization strategies is too broad. We're talking about priority areas and not about something that is implementable by clusters, which would be a real transformative activities. So this main challenge brought us to a call for action, which was that we need a systematic process and the tools for cluster initiatives to identify and develop such transformative activities of the type that I just showed before with the chicken and the plastics materials example, the development of bio-based inputs for the plastics industry. That was our call for action, and what we did is we developed something that we called the S3 Innovation Model. S3 Innovation Model is nothing else but such a systematic process and the tools to identify and develop transformative activities, together with cluster initiatives. So tools that cluster initiatives can use along a process that leads to the identification and development of real transformative activities in smart specialization strategies. We did this work at two levels. One of them was more scientific, more academic. We really defined what we mean by transformative activities. I'll just give you briefly the definition. It's a little bit too complex probably to keep in mind. So it's new combinations of innovation capacities and actions targeting related areas and having the potential to significantly transform existing industry. The simple version of that is a combination of existing capacities, derive projects from that address opportunities for transformation, okay, through transformative activities. If you're interested in the more academic, grounded aspect of that, we have a few working papers together with Dominique Forêt from EPFL in Lausanne, who is considered to be one of the founding fathers of the smart specialization strategy concept, especially at the European policy level also. So we worked in very close collaboration with him on this concept, on why it is so important to define the right level of granularity at this level of the transformative activity, of this process of transformation. So if you're interested in a few working papers, I can direct you to. The other level was a more practical level, with the development of the model as such and with the testing of this model in all our partner regions. So I will just briefly tell you what the different steps are, not go into detail. We start, of course, with a base of evidence. It's standard S3 process, base of evidence. But for each of the steps, we developed concrete tools, methodologies, workshop methodologies, documentation, materials that cluster initiatives can use to move forward along the process. Base of evidence is extremely important. I really would like to highlight this, that if the process is not data-driven and if you don't have data to really think about what are your strengths in the regions, what is reflected in the data, if you don't have that, it's very complicated to organize a good entrepreneurial process because you need to have something that you can base your analysis on. Base of evidence, then the proper identification phase. This is typically done in entrepreneurial discovery workshops, inviting actors from the different sectors that you would like to work with. We have a workshop methodology for cluster initiatives to do this identification. But then an additional step, following up on the entrepreneurial discovery workshops, which we called action development workshops. So once you identified the transformative activities, we need to come up with action plans. We need to know how can this now be implemented into concrete projects, into concrete policy measures. So we followed up the entrepreneurial discovery workshop in the identification phase by action development workshops in what we call the development phase. We then have an implementation phase where we have tools of how existing cluster services can be used to implement some of these developed actions. And finally, we have a monitoring toolbox that should help cluster initiatives and regions to monitor the whole process and to evaluate the outcomes. So this is really just a very brief overview, and the bad news is that we don't really have time to get into that. It will be very interesting to share all the outcomes of what we did in all our regions with this model with you, what kind of transformative activities we found. The main message is we were very, very positively surprised. It was a very interesting and fruitful 3-year process in this project. So bad news, we don't have time to go into detail. The good news is that everything is documented in the final publication of our project. We also have a dedicated website that explains the concept of transformative activities, the different steps, what can be used, that makes available all the materials. So if you're a region or a cluster initiative that thinks that this concept of transformative activity would be interesting for you, you can download all the materials from the website, or even better, get in touch with us, send us an email, simply Google S3 for Alp clusters, which is the horrible acronym of our project, but if you Google that, you will get the link to the website where all the materials are. So if you want to do transformative activities in your regions, try to get good data to start the process and get in touch with us, and we would be happy to exchange.